Welcome back. This is Life of Lexi, episode 2. I want it to be called this episode, The Life You're Supposed to Be Living. And what I mean by that is this. I think, especially where I was growing up in the United States, I was taught that there were very specific boxes, if you will, that I was supposed to check off in my life in order to be successful or happy or certain things that I was supposed to accomplish that meant that I quote unquote made it in life, right? And I remember growing up and being told that don't worry, everything's going to work out, everything's going to be fine. You're going to, graduate high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to get your college degree, you're going to get a 9-to-5 job. And don't worry, because you're pretty, conventionally attractive, whatever you want to call it, you should be able to find a husband pretty soon, and you will get married and have kids. And then you'll have the white picket fence house in suburbia with the dog running around, and that'll be your life. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm taken aback by that. I'm like, okay, so that's supposed to be the order of my life, right? Okay. College, job, marriage, kids, house, dog. That's it. And then that's going to be the rest of your life. You're going to work for the next 30 to 40 to 50 years until your body gives out. And hopefully you'll be able to afford a single vacation or two a year. And then that'll be it. But don't worry, when you're 60 or 70, then you'll be able to travel the world. You know what I mean? So I remember hearing shit like this and I'm like, oh my God, that's all my life is ever supposed to be. And let me be clear. I understand that everybody has different goals, different dreams, different versions of success. And I think everything that I just named is a beautiful life. I think those are wonderful things and beautiful things. I think what bothered me about the tone of where I was growing up, as a woman, you're supposed to be obedient to your husband. You're supposed to be obedient to your kids. Like your purpose in life is supposed to be in servitude to everyone and everything else around you. And I remember sort of hearing that and being like, yeah, no. And it's not that I don't want to show up for the people in my life. Of course I do. But my sole purpose cannot be to make everybody else around me feel fulfilled. I need to make myself feel fulfilled first. And what gives me a sense of fulfillment is like this, having something of my own, having my own purpose, my own career, my own driving force forwards. It can't just come from me pouring into everyone else around me because I've done that before. And also it doesn't really work. So yeah, I remember growing up and being told these are the things you're going to do. And you get out there, you get into the dating world and you realize you're like, okay, this might be a little bit more difficult than everybody else explained to me than I thought. And after a failed relationship and several attempts at dating and all of these things, you realize maybe this is going to take a whole lot longer than I thought. And who knows today if, I believe that there is someone out there for me, whether I meet them right now or not. I accept either path happening. For women especially, I think there's this really big rush to the age of 30. And I remember that being like a really big pressure point for me. They're like, you should have these things by this age. And if you don't, if you're not married and kids by the time you're 30, you're sort of a fucking weirdo and you're sort of a fucking loser. And it's hilarious because I didn't necessarily think I didn't really think too much about marriage and kids. I don't know. I sort of thought it would happen in its own time. But now to be close to that situation, I'm 29, turning 30 in November. And to think, no boyfriend, no fiance, no husband, no kids. I'm like, wow, okay, this is a lot different than what I thought it's going to be. And that's okay. But you can't bet on that, I think. And I think as a woman, that was sort of a mistake that I made. You can't put so much emphasis and pressure on relationship. But it's time to make space. I think this year is really about committing to this, committing to my passions and my hobbies and things that I want to make into a career first before devoting my life to that. And it's funny, the more that I was online and, doom scrolling through TikTok, I started seeing a lot of content, obviously, because it populates what you're searching and looking up and all of these things. I started seeing a lot of content that was based around growing up and finding yourself and creating your own version of success and following your dreams and following your passion. And that influencer or business owner, his name is Simon Squibb. and he's based in the UK. And I read his book. I don't think I have ever read something that so clearly described the experience that I have had in my life growing up when it came to, struggling to create that career aspect. His book perfectly details how I felt about growing up, picking a career, fear of failure, fear of trying, and fear of being seen and trying different things that people don't necessarily relate to. His book perfectly describes all of those things. And actually, I did bring it today. I'm going to grab it. I'll be right back. No, I have it. I know I have it here somewhere. So this is the book that I was talking about. It's by Simon Squibb and also influencer Simon Squibb. He lives in the UK. He funds people's dreams, and essentially he gives them business advice and encouragement, and he'll give them the startup costs to pursue those dreams, and then he will check in with them down the line to see the progress that they've made. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool that there's somebody that's actually out there doing this. And what he describes in his book is there's 4 myths about life, and this is in the first chapter. The first myth is that the harder I work, the luckier I get. The problem is making hard work the end goal, saying that if you embrace it, then you're bound to succeed. Spreading the idea that it's working hard rather than working on our dreams that will bring fulfillment. This mindset tells you that you don't have to think, that you should simply put your head down and get on with the task at hand. Work hard and the rest will look after itself. It's part of a prescriptive view of life that says you should be sensible, realistic, and careful. Don't quit your job and start a business. Don't pursue a career that isn't reliable. Don't try things that the people around you can't understand or relate to. That's why I have a problem with the gospel of hard work before all else. Why I think it's a dangerous myth. Because it tells us not to dream, not to pursue our biggest ideas and deepest ambitions if there's an element of risk about it, not to step off the treadmill and think about what we really want from life. Instead, we're meant to carry on, walking the same path as our parents and peer group, towing the line and trusting that our hard work, usually on someone else's behalf and mostly for someone else's benefit, will be rewarded. And we're supposed to think of our dreams as a form of hard work that is too hard, unachievable, unrealistic, and even selfish. There is a lesson here. We don't succeed by forcing ourselves to work hard as some kind of punishment. In fact, we achieve the most when we work smart and when we're working on something that we really want to do. And had I had been told that much earlier on, my life would have been so different. It would have been so different. And that's okay. That's okay. But I feel like these are the types of tools that people need to be accessing every day. Because that passage opened my mind. Why would I spend my entire life, one, being an employee for someone else? I never wanted to work for somebody else. And I think that's the problem with the system in the United States. You go to college to get a degree to work for someone else, to be an employee for someone else. I understand that there is a natural progression to things. And yes, at some point in your life, you are going to have to work for someone else. I understand that. I get that. You don't just start your own business, have immediate success. That rarely ever happens, okay? With that being said, I don't think you have to spend your entire life working for somebody else. I think it's pretty reasonable to think that you can either sell a product or start a service that solves a problem that people are attracted to and are willing to pay for. And had I had that mindset earlier, yeah, I would have chosen something different. You think about that. Okay, so I'm supposed to spend from my 20s on the best years of my life, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, working towards somebody else's goals, somebody else's dreams, somebody else's aspirations. And then, yes, I'm compensated for my time, but in today's world, is $50,000 really enough to live off of? No, not after taxes, not after your mortgage payment or your rent or whatever it is. And even really $100,000, even though it's a lot of money, after taxes, it's actually $70,000 take home. So you factor in all of your mandatory expenses and then unforeseen costs, and God forbid you have kids, and you're essentially left with nothing at the end of the year. You know what I mean? Because it's very expensive now to live, especially as a single individual person living in the city. So it's like, what do you do? That's a very frustrating experience in life, to grow up and be told that your life's going to be one way and you're going to have a better quality of life and afford the life that you thought you were going to have and be able to travel and, support yourself. And then that doesn't actually end up happening. And you think that simply because you work hard, that you will achieve those things. And I don't necessarily think that's true. Even if you work for a company now for 10, 15, 20 years, people get passed up for promotions all the time just because you work hard at something. And yes, you are putting in sincere effort. Sometimes that's not the only variable or factor or solution to something. Just working hard for the sake of working hard, it doesn't mean you're working on something you actually want to do. And I want to spend my life working on something that gives me meaning and a sense of purpose and that I actually want to do. And so I wish our schooling system was set up around pursuing our own individual interests, whatever that is, and finding a way to make money from that interest versus going to school to be taught to work for someone else, get that salary, and then work to survive for the rest of your life. And then maybe sometimes if you can treat yourself, you can, buy the nice jacket or go on the nice trip or, treat yourself to a spa day. It's like, no, I want freedom of my life. Truly, like freedom of my life, freedom of my schedule, freedom of my time, freedom of my money. And I know that takes a lot of hard work. It doesn't just fall out of the fucking sky. But if you're willing to work hard towards something that you're good at and solves a problem, I think that's where most people should be devoting their time and their energy. And then also too, you think about that. Okay, you spend 40 years of your life working for a company. Do they even give you stocks in the company? They don't even give you ownership in the company that you've spent your entire life's work devoted to. It's just interesting to think about. I don't know. And then you're 60 years old, your life passes you by, and then you can travel the world as you're like aging and declining. That sounds like a fucking scam. Like, to me, truly, that sounds like a scam. Don't worry, when you're too old to travel, that's when you can do it. And that's when you'll enjoy your life. What am I going to do with a walker, be getting on the fucking plane to go to Europe? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to do those things now when I have the time, have the energy, I have my youth, my quality of life, all those things. I would say this book, What's Your Dream by Simon Squibb, everybody needs to buy this. If you want more for your life, you want financial freedom, you want to start a business, you have that entrepreneurial spirit, you just have an itch for something more, this is something everybody should buy, because it's not just talking about the myths of life that we were taught or certain ideas. It teaches you, like, I think from start to finish, really how to start a business. And I think sometimes that's what I've struggled with. If I don't know the steps from point A to point Z on how to do something, yes, I'll research it myself. But if you weren't taught those things, how are you supposed to know to do it, right? How do you start an LLC? What's the process of doing that? How much money is it? Okay, how much money am I putting in to get out? Like, there are certain steps in the process that I feel like I was not taught, obviously. I feel like most people were not taught. And I think it's important to get a tool that teaches you the steps in the process, so that way you can follow it and do it on your own. And then also too, another point I wanted to touch on in this book, this is the second myth, and it says failure means disaster. Of all the myths that society and traditional education promote, this fear of failure is perhaps the most harmful. We are taught to believe that there's something wrong about getting it wrong, that failure is an embarrassment, a dirty secret to hide away, proof that we're stupid and lacking in talent, that we'll never be good enough, and it is a pervasive and coercive idea, one that encourages us to give up on our dreams before we've even tried. And I think that too really hits the nail on the head, because it's like, I think sometimes you get the courage to start things, you get the courage to try things and to do things, and then you have like a little hiccup or a speed bump in the road, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I failed at this, I did this wrong. For example, I just filmed an episode and I fucking forgot to press record on the audio system that, tracks the sound. That's important. I just made a mistake. If I let that mistake derail this entire process, I would have stopped filming and I would have given up, right? But I think we mean, like we were taught sometimes, that failure in essence means disaster. I don't think that's true. I think sometimes it's a learning experience that we all need to have. And if you don't have it, how will you ever know how to fix things and correct it and make it better, right? It's feedback. Really, too, the reason I wanted to highlight this book, What's Your Dream by Simon Squibb, one, I've loved it. I feel like it's changed my perspective. I feel like it's changed my view on what it means to find meaningful work. And that doesn't necessarily come from a separate institution. That can come from an institution that I create, that you create. It's just really having the balls to try and to do it, right? And yes, you're going to fuck up. Yes, you're going to fail. Yes, you're going to make mistakes. Yes, people are going to talk shit about you. Yes, people are going to judge you for trying. And, that's okay. I think that's a part of the process. But also, too, I would like to interview you, Simon. This is a message for you. I'm speaking to you personally. You've really inspired me. I think we have a lot of similarities. I am also dyslexic. I really struggled with that throughout my entire life in schooling, and school was very hard. And that was another reason why I felt like I wasn't really meant for a traditional path, because I had to work very, very hard to accomplish the same things that everybody else did. I found a lot of use in your book. I think you teach the right things. I like your mission of helping people. And I think you've liked my videos. You followed me on TikTok, and I think I messaged you on Instagram and you did answer. And you said you were open to being on my podcast. I don't care what I have to do. I would love to interview you. And if that means I fly to London and I go and interview you, I am willing to do that. Or it's you coming here to the US based off of your schedule. I would really love the opportunity to talk to you. Not only talk to you about your book, but talk to you about everything that you've learned and, what makes a successful entrepreneur, and sort of have like a crash course lesson, not only for everybody else, but for myself as well, because I'm sort of like not flailing in the dark, but this is my first time doing this too. This is a learning experience for me. And so I would like to learn from you and find out, really the missing pieces to the puzzle that I don't have. I would love to end on that note. So you guys, thank you. Thank you again for listening and being here and watching. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, all of those things. I will leave my social media handle on the bottom. It's going to be at lexi.pulick on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to this episode of Life of Lexi, and I will see you next week. Bye.